Hello, this is my presentation. The title is Sentenced Differently, Examining Racial Bias in Nonviolent Drug Cases in Maricopa County. My name is Aja Tim. So imagine this, you're pulled over for a routine traffic stop. You're a Black or Latino individual in Maricopa County, Arizona. Despite the state's legalization of recreational marijuana in 2020, you are still more likely to be arrested and face harsher penalties for marijuana-related offenses than a white person in the same situation. This is not an individual experience, but a broader systematic issue that continues to affect communities of color in Arizona. So the basic purpose of my study is to explore why Black and Latino individuals in Maricopa County continue to face these disparities even after marijuana legalization. This sheds a light on how race and class influence criminal justice outcomes. So my thesis statement is, despite Arizona's legalization of recreational marijuana in 2020, racial disparities and nonviolent drug sentencing persist in Maricopa County. This paper will argue that legalization alone cannot address the deep-rooted radical bias embedded in the local criminal justice system. So I want to do a quick overview of my main arguments. One would be legalization did not solve racial disparities. There's evidence showing that Black and Latino individuals are still facing harsher sentences for marijuana-related offenses compared to white individuals even after legalization. Two, racial stratification and sentencing. These disparities are not just by individual biases, but reflect a broader pattern of racial stratification in the criminal justice system, which systematically disadvantages people of color. And then three, the need for systematic change. So the legal reforms aimed at equity in marijuana laws have not been sufficient on their own, and a deeper reform is required to dismantle the systematic racial bias that exists today. So my refined research question is, how has race bias in criminal justice system towards nonviolent drug charges since the legalization of marijuana in 2020 dictate a longer sentencing of Black and Latino people than white people? And then when it comes to stratification and how this plays into it, racial stratification refers to the unequal distribution of resources, opportunities, and treatment based on race, leading to unequal outcomes in context of criminal justice. This stratification is evident in the way that Black and Latino individuals continue to receive harsher sentencing than white individuals for similar crimes, despite legal reforms. So now going into my hypothesis is, if race continues to influence sentencing outcomes in Maricopa County, Black and Latino individuals will receive harsher sentences for nonviolent marijuana offenses than their white counterparts, even after legalization. So my methodology is, first, data collection. I will analyze public court record sentencing data and arrest records from Maricopa County. This data will include details about marijuana-related offenses and sentencing outcomes before and after legalization. And my analysis is using a quantitative approach. I will compare sentencing data for Black and Latino and white individuals to identify disparities that persist. Stratification concept applications. This analysis, when it comes to stratification concept and application, this analysis will demonstrate racial stratification by comparing how sentencing outcomes vary along racial lines and how these patterns may reflect broader structural inequalities in the criminal justice system. So what I achieved in my research, with the article that I ended up searching up, it is clear that Black, Indigenous women of color face harsher legal outcomes than white women and men due to their intersecting systems of oppression. Black women are also overrepresented in the U.S. carceral system, despite being only 13% of the adult female population. And the judicial diversity influences outcomes. Black judges are more likely to have fairer ruling in radical and racialized cases, and female judges are linked to be more lenient, to have more lenient sentencing and downward departures. Mixed findings on judge genders and sentencing harshness has proved that female judges are more way lenient than male judges when it comes to racial cases. And intersectionality helps explain how race and gender and class combine to worsen legal outcomes for marginalized women. I have data from 2005 to 22. Basically, the meta-analysis reveals consistent racial disparities in drug sentencing. Even with overall reductions, drug-related charges remain racially biased, and racial disparities were more persistent in drug cases. When it comes to gender and intersectionality findings, Black, Indigenous women of color face double jeopardy and have a racialized and gendered disadvantage. When it comes to Black and Latino women reporting police profiling and being targeted, they are more likely to fit police profiling and be targeted more aggressively and receive harsher sentences than white women and white men for the same charges. And they're being treated as less redeemable in courts. So the basic importance of this study is the reason why this matters is that the legalization of marijuana was a step towards justice. However, when the benefits of legalization were not equally felt across racial lines, this research definitely helps highlight the gaps in equity within the criminal justice system and provide evidence for why reforms must go beyond just legalizing marijuana. And the impact hopefully will be the impact by addressing these racial disparities will hopefully advocate for comprehensive criminal justice reforms that will soon address the underlying systematic racism that continues to affect marginalized groups. So when it comes to expected outcomes, I expect that racial disparities will still exist in marijuana-related sentencing. Maricopa within Black and Latino facing harsher sentences compared to white people. When it comes to the implications, the findings will emphasize the need for policies that go beyond legalization to address systematic bias in sentencing and incarceration. In conclusion, despite legal reforms, Black and Latino individuals continue to experience harsher sentencing for marijuana-related offenses in Maricopa County, revealing the ongoing presence of racial stratification in the justice system. So for a call to action, I think legalization alone cannot dismantle the deep-rooted racial bias in the system. Comprehensive reforms are needed to ensure that justice is truly equitable for all. And thank you for listening to my presentation.